Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to the Resident Evil 4 with the Fan HD visual texture mod enabled. Let's see. Yeah, I believe we're in the castle. I know we're in the castle. I believe we're gonna hit a point here fairly quickly where, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to fight a bunch of underground characters, and the map doesn't really label that. Although, actually, looking at this map, it seems more like we are going into a kind of notorious section where it's a very long area and we have to have Ashley's help. Which, if that is where this ends up, that's a little surprising. Because that's not really where I thought that would happen. Yep. Down here, I need to fight a guy. But this is locked. And I don't think... I don't know if I've ever even tried this. But yeah, you gotta fight this guy. And this introduces what is, I guess, your next level of El Gigante characters. That I think I probably have tried to shoot through this. Yeah. You can see blood, but I don't know if it's really taking any damage there. What's the big deal about these is that they're not big and unencumbered like the El Gigantes, and they have like protection on their heads so that you can't just headshot the El Gigante.
Wait.
Of course, just headshotting the El Gigante alone is not enough. I believe what happens here is that at some point maybe we come back and fight him, and at some point we walk down through this hallway, and you'll want to shoot this for some fire damage if you can get it shot fairly quickly. And I kind of felt like even now there would have been some of the cultist characters. And yeah, there wasn't a treasure marked there. Arguably the treasure map is not as useful as it might seem. Let's see, if I was to shoot that, I think then that becomes something that we can't. Like, I don't think it moves it, because right now it's in this non-despawning state, like some of the other items on the floor. But if I was to, like, the wander here is so small. Yeah, see, now it's in a despawning state. So if I cared about it, I would need to kind of rush. And we saw that vases can be broken and that there can be things around the treasure chest. Here we've got some backstory on Louis, which I think, particularly in this section, they are trying to highlight. Man, this really is the point where you start to max out your health.
Follow me.
Just get her to
Wait.
stay somewhere in the middle of maps. See, this may have been a completely different picture in the non-modded version of the game. Yeah. And certainly this would be the point where I think
Follow me.
I'm going to put her in this corner instead.
Wait.
On a certain level, it does just kind of make a lot of sense that you would like, it makes a lot of sense that you would just follow instructions when you're in this dangerous situation. And actually, you would expect her to perhaps ask a few more questions. It doesn't really make the most amount of sense at all that there wouldn't be massive amounts of Secret Service always around the president's children. Enough that you would never really have a chance for them to be kidnapped, but I guess that would ruin the point there. So these bells irritate the prisoner guy and cause him to attack. So what you want to do is hit these bells, which arguably means what you want to do is reload on this and use the TMP. His eyes are stitched up, showing that he's blind, I guess. And see, it does seem like you could just dump a bunch of damage into him. And I think there is a maximum amount of damage in all the other versions of these characters, because they start to become infrequent mini bosses. They are a twist on the chainsaw people, certainly. But this one may have a certain level to it. So, like his little charge effect. You want to get the Lost Plug on his back shot. Yep. You can see he is just a heavy hitter. Alright. And so, with that, since we've got so many of these, we'll just go ahead and use one of these. And we'll go ahead and like the slow, calm attack. There. That really highlights a problem in that there was a lot of health in these characters, and it just gets bigger and bigger. And they do have the Los Plagas on the back like the El Gigante. Now, if I ran up to that guy and sliced him in the back with a knife, that is a question certainly to ask. it is possible that
Follow me. Wait.
and once you have like the 9mm gun, that's really where you want to use your 9mm bullets, is on those characters, and really nothing else.
Follow me.
You'd think the 9mm gun might save your butt
Wait.
in some other situations or in boss fights, but it kind of doesn't. Like, generally when you are in the boss fight going from this point, there is
Follow me.
some other trick to it, or even a 9mm is just not enough of a item. See, yeah, I don't remember. Alright. Like, I don't know what the really best strategy here is, but I suspect the best strategy is to do this and run this way, get it through this door, and then get her in like this corner and just tell people to wait there. Alright. What this allows me to do is, some people may drop down here, but this allows me to start with these guys and the handgun. And this usually is exactly where you're in a very bad position. Yeah. Like, you're usually in a very bad position at this point. It does kind of checkpoint you, but it checkpoints you, I think, in the room, which is exactly not where you want it to be. Let's see, we really don't have time for this. Yeah.
Wait.
It might be somewhat safer to put her somewhere else. This really highlights, I think, the problem with reasonable or realisticness here. The massive amount of bullets and guns that you would need in this setup is not something you could really do in a live action movie, and that's in part certainly shown in the kind of low effort Resident Evil movies that have been made so far, is that there's just no way to possibly have as many enemies on with as many weapons as you'd have in a game like this. Is this an infinite spawning amount of enemies? I don't believe it is. So, I think I am doing the right move. This is like absolutely insane to try and use your blade when you're doing that. I could go stand on the other platform and then call her.
Follow me.
That will raise up that part.
Wait.
And we got a little bit of a hitch there. I've left the game running for 24 hours again, so I think what you want to do here is probably run and what we're gonna have her do is tell Ashley to shoot that. I think the move here is to run up to this next section. And this might just be a great example of where shotgun shots not super useful. Alright. Yeah, I think we may very well just need to protect her.
Over there.
We get her at the crank, and that's when we start spawning more enemies. So you might have a bit of a breath here that you can take. The crank is there, the crank is there, There's two of them. This is interesting. You have kind of like this upside down chandelier. There's a first aid spray here. So yeah, I guess maybe you're safe to run around in the lower level once you walked up to the higher level. But then we'll start getting attacked again.
Wait.
Just have her stand in the middle. Yep. We'll just see if anybody decides to respawn. Why do we need all of this stuff? Just because of bullets. I almost never walk through these paths. There's probably a better idea around walking through those paths, but they end up in the same spot. And even little bits of gold, even 1,000 gold, still plays such a big role because of how expensive upgrades are gonna get. You can see at this level, even by playing very well and having as much gold as you practically could have, my handgun is taking 2-3 shots at minimum, and usually closer to 4 or 5 shots to kill these enemies. My shotgun, which does about twice the amount of damage, is still taking 2 or 3 shots. Yep. And this is definitely an area that feels like... Here's some more HD textures of images and paintings that there probably was a painting there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was completely different. I also wouldn't really be that surprised if there literally wasn't a painting there in the first place at all.
Watch out for me.
Alright. So basically, since we're looking this way, we'll start trying our best to kill like both people that are chasing you and basic people that are knocking her. I wouldn't be surprised if this is very much a case where it's infinite spawning, and so we really have a situation here where the come on, I cannot hit this guy. I cannot move him around fast enough. And the awkward movements certainly now are highlighting problems of just the controls of this game. And I think they pretty much disappear Once the bridge is done, or very possibly we just run. Same painting here. And there just is not a reason to not jump and run. This really gets to the point where you have like no bullets in any of your guns, and this is where a capacity upgrade could really save you. So I guess the question is, are we anywhere close now that we went through that big area to a merchant? Yes. Are we super close, or are we about to run into another fight? There's a point, I think, where you're in this room with the upside down statues, which are interesting but thematically don't really play any role. It was just, I guess, something that they thought would be cool. Having to hit the X button multiple times there to get it. There are also an increasing number of spindles and things that you have to collect by shooting. And some things that you straight up have to break glass to get behind. Yep. I think you go down this hallway, and this is the point where we no longer have Ashley. We lose her for a while, and that moves the story along and makes it less of a escort quest. And then the other thing, I guess going up here is probably fine. Yep. Yeah, you can't do anything there. I guess it might have been an interesting idea. They wanted to have some statues somewhere, and they just didn't know where to put these statues, so they hung them upside down. Noticeably, these are statues of some female, like, looks almost like a Greek goddess character hung upside down. So maybe that was the implication of what the religion was before the Lost Plagas happened. Although, you would assume that that very well may just be like the Holy Madonna, Virgin Mary type thing, considering how all of the other artwork in this game is like that. Now we get introduced very late in the game, in this midpoint, to the shooting gallery, which I guess the good news is that you are halfway through the game, so my controls on it are probably as good as possible. Scoring above 1,000 points, bonus points awarded for each headshot. High scoring Salazar targets with successive hits, shooting an Ashley target with deduct points. One bottle cap for every 1,000 points scored. Special bottle caps awarded when either shooting all wooden targets except Ashley or scoring above 3,500 points. There are 24 battle caps in all. Each time you enter a new shooting range, 6 new battle caps will become available. Each time you complete a row of collector's bases, you earn bonus points. There are 4 rows. You have 4 bonus chances. Although, 4 bonus chances does not mean you get 4 chances to win the bonuses, just that you can earn up to 4 bonuses. Again, maybe a Japanese translation to English that's a little rough there. Bottle cap collection can be viewed in the key and treasure screen. Now I imagine
Welcome.
Let's see. I don't think you use any guns here at all, or any bullets. You have a special loadout of reusable bullets, because that would be crazy in this game to actually use your own guns. And this really is just going to come down to like drift. You have no stock bump here, so I've never really used the TMP that way, and the shotgun is really a weird one to potentially use, but arguably maybe the right one to use instead. And I just kind of question as far as how fast I can really be. This first round should be fairly easy. Scores are not very high. Okay. Combos happening there. There's this like wasp nest on the there, I missed one. That's not terrible, but you can kind of see it's not at these low levels going to be particularly good either. So you kind of have this like wasp nest here on the side of the building, although that may just be a hole in the building. You also have a light, which nothing happens there. And I think you just do this again. I don't think the John Woo I don't think the birds mean anything. Mostly this is just get the red dot on the target, pull the target. Don't be afraid really to even miss. I guess maybe more headshots would get you more points. I think headshots probably get you more points for sure. Yeah. That time it got foggier. Seems like your dot really does need to be on the head if you're going to go for headshots, or at least you need to be fairly close to headshots. And I guess you are effectively doubling your income every time you can get headshots. Although using a shotgun, there it is, really is not the way to do that. So you had nothing available to you as far as nothing really available to you as far as that much variety. It's just like you don't shoot anything at all in the first run, then it's fog in the second run, and flies on the next run. I feel like in the first run, in particular, you really wouldn't. Yeah, your regular handgun is your much better option here. And why are women worth twice as much points? I don't know. But the game is doing that. And see, if you shot that, if you had shot in the TNT, would have blown up all of those people. This is where a better element would really help. And there was the Salazar, which I really should have switched guns at that point, like to do the Salazar, because the Salazar shot is like worth a lot. Alright. Zoom in all the way, get that 500, switch back to this point. And yeah, that'll just keep on going. Let's see, let's end the game. You've been awarded 5 bottle caps. Let's reevaluate all this. Boy, we just have a ton of stuff. Enough stuff that it is arguably to the point where we should mix at least one green for a higher health upgrade. So now we have the bottle cap row. And the bottle caps are just like 3D models. Games still do this. A lot of games, I think, don't really have a good reason to do this. And I don't know why you particularly are calling these bottle caps. That doesn't even... I didn't know it had sound ever. Like, you would just call these figures, or Figma in Japanese.
Don't worry, Ashley. I'm coming for you.
And see, doesn't all of that sound different than the Leon we've seen? And why is he like totally in the wrong place? It seems like the game is just glitched there and off center. Let's try that again. Nope. There is no heavy tilt forward or back, so if you are just going to be a pervert and try to look up her skirt, you're not going to get very far there in this 3D model. And then Louis there, or Louise, very shiny in the HD remake. All his clothes very, very shiny. But, and I guess that's kind of true even here. There's just a real reflectivity, wet look. Let's see. Sniping by far is the better way to do this. And I guess we just need one more. So the thing here is it is way more important to get the cycle, then switch to this, and then snipe this than anything else, because you're just not going to get 500 any other way. If you can get more, that's great, but get the snipe on the Salazar and then try the cycle again. And if you've got moving ones, probably just best to hit those. Because you can see how sniping is just way more useful. And see, if you hit the TNT there, that would have given you another cycle. Of course, the problem here, on top of the drift, is you really got to get more headshots. I think you can just kind of exit out too, and then start over again. The score is going up and up as far as what you need also. And so this creates a real problem as far as trying to get 4,000. I suppose what you could have tried to do is get a double headshot and hit the statue in front of you there. Getting rid of the moving pieces quickly may buy you some more time. Although some of it seems to... Yeah, and maybe like you could get a little bit further. The field of view may be changing things a little bit here too. Noticeably, what won't help you in this is you just won't... Yeah, I think a better angle can actually save you on this. Although maybe not by much. Actually, let's... Like, your upgraded weapons are not going to really save you. Because these weapons are just not, I assume, upgraded. Memorization will save you, certainly. If you can memorize. prioritization will save you if you can prioritize. Noticeably, though, your sniper rifle seems not to be fast enough to trigger the Salazar shots. So you're limited, and they're just laughing at you. Like, let's just try rapid fire. This might be an example of what you would try if you were just a bad shooter. Is to rapid fire your shots. But I don't think the game is going to allow you to succeed from that. No. You need to not only hit all of the targets, but also hit them without missing and in a fairly rapid succession. And your options are really just two loadouts, as it is. Rapid fire is probably unlikely to let you get the Salazar shots either. Let's see. If we could get rapid shots there, we would be getting rapid shots there. There, you might as well just give up there. I feel like headshots are just highly unlikely to. It may be where you actually miss in the background. You can't get into the negatives there, at least in score. That causes different visual effects. Like hitting the chimney may cause the fog. The game may be somewhat generous, but I don't think it is really that generous. Like, again, just no Salazar trophy or target. So actually that just doesn't work. Yeah, and I'll leave it at that. And this is where potentially unlocking all the unlockables is not really worth the time. And just getting a save file maybe is worth the time. Inherently, you get all of these bottle caps on this bottom row, and then you've just got 3 more locations throughout the game where the shooting galleries are going to be more difficult, And I think getting all the bottle caps maybe gets you an achievement. I think I very possibly have gotten all the bottle caps in previous runs. And it really is just a case of, do you want to do this once again? Compare this to like me playing, what is it? I have forgotten the name. Fallout 3, but the Fallout 3 game, I used a walkthrough to get all of the bobbleheads in Fallout 3, and I had never done that before. But also getting the bobbleheads in Fallout 3 does not require shooting galleys. If anything, the shooting gallery also kind of is a good indication of just where the game expects your shooting skills to be. And with the tweaks and everything, there might be
Got some rare
more
things
dead
on
zones
sale,
here.
stranger. What are you selling?
We'll start by selling things. Having like 3 grenades is a lot. We can sell 2 spinels, obviously.
Thank you.
We can sell 3 velvet blues.
Thank you.
And we'll save the purple gem.
What are you buying?
As far as capacity, absolutely, but let's start by upgrading the capacity on some other things first.
Is that all? Is that... Thank you.
We may actually only be able to afford capacity on these guns.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, despite our best efforts, we are 17,000 short to get the handgun up in damage, which the handgun is 2 levels or 3 levels from being its max damage. We are then another 25,000 short of getting the sniper rifle damage, which actually we just came from a rifle section, so you'd think you would use that a lot more, but you kind of don't. Seems like you just don't get mines that often in general, so a mine thrower doesn't make the most sense. And the shotgun, interestingly, doesn't have an upgrade at the moment.
What are you buying?
I can't imagine that it would have been worth the 38,000 to buy the broken butterfly, because you really are only going to use it against that Wolverine-like character.
What are you selling?
And if anything, I guess I'm kind of stocking up.
Come back anytime.
I think that's really where we're at, is that I'm kind of stocking up for the boss fight that is actually fairly far away from where we are. Like, yeah, if I recall correctly, we go to this point, Ashley gets kidnapped, then we have to go into a sewer section that actually feels a lot more like it should have been in the island section, but I guess they wanted to balance it out, so they moved it to this section. So you go through this solo sewer section, and then that wraps you back around and eventually lets you through this doorway section. And then I think you may have to wrap around quite a bit until you're finally into this section where Ashley is back to being saved, or at least back to seeing her again. And I think at that section that might even be where you actually play as Ashley for a brief moment, going from here back. And this is uniquely kind of the only time in which you go into an area and then you have to walk all the way back, whereas every other area fast travels you. Once you're fully reunited with Ashley, at this point, then you use a shortcut to take you back to this point, and you should have all 3 of the key points to unlock this door, to then use another shortcut to take you all the way to this point, and that works your way towards the final boss fight. I think at some point, I guess we also engage with that. So obviously there's a lot more to happen here. I'm fairly certain, I'd be really surprised if getting this last bottle cap got me a gun. I really think it just gives you a bunch of gold. But it may get you a gun. Should probably investigate that. That being said, if I was to stick with it, I could easily spend another hour around this. So I couldn't upgrade the TMP. Let's just talk to this guy again. I couldn't upgrade the TMP capacity at all. Well, it seems to indicate there was something new here, but it must have just been firepower. And it would just be kind of crazy to crazy. You have to connect these. I guess what they don't want you to be able to do is go into the menu and cheat, because that would be exactly what I would try to do, is go into the menu and cheat by combining bullets. I'm totally gonna need the shotgun. And yeah, there's just a boss fight that is coming that really justifies having a lot of grenades. But putting them way down here is the smarter move. And then bullets that you're going to run out of very quickly should probably be at the top here. And bullets that you're not going to run out of. There is an argument, certainly, to selling like 2 of these for maybe that would get you 2,000 pesetas. It really isn't that significant amount. And I can't justify making a green, but I can justify making 2 greens as health kits. But I'm doing so well, relatively speaking, in this game that I'm sitting on 2 full upgrades of health, which maybe is limiting the other yellow upgrades, but I don't think it is, because I think that is fairly baked into the game where the green, red, and yellow leaves are as far as medicines. This game very possibly could be a nightmare for colorblind people of a sort, depending on how they're colorblind. I guess I want to check and just make sure I haven't missed any treasures, since I haven't found one lately. There's just one, I think, upstairs. There, I suppose, is a high danger of this game when it was first released, of it being exhausting now that we are like 8 hours in. I should also just exit out and relaunch the game. That way, if there is any memory leak problem, which I think there might be a small memory leak after leaving the game running for 12 hours, 24 hours, you can address that. But yeah, I don't think there's much else I can do. Let's see, if I was to... The thing I would like here is probably a different mod to cheat the headshots and just auto connect with the headshots better. And I don't think Resident Evil 4 Tweaks is gonna let me do that. There might be an argument in which I could use the mouse and try it that way. Like, a mouse is going to be considerably much more sensitive and high resolution. If we turn down the sensitivity slider a little bit, or even turn up the dead zone a little bit. Like, my controller is not the newest controller, so yeah, there is definitely some possibilities there in the tweaks, which at a certain level you are just adjusting the game in a different way than what normal players would allow you to do. It's kind of hard when you don't have a dot. It does seem like there's less drift now. There's definitely some that is just built in the game, I think, where it is designed to randomly go. But at point blank range here, that works. I guess the other way to test this would be to, say, find the long hallway and just show how much Swift. Like, obviously this is something that has been added to the game. It would not be swinging back and forth and up and down like that normally. And so yeah, I guess it does open a couple of possibilities where I could play the game with the mouse and go and try and do the last gallery off screen. I don't know if I really want to do it on screen because it could just be something that takes a lot of time for fairly repetitive content. Or I could just try it again with this dead zone. You really don't have to address it now, nor do you really have to go, I think, to the specific door to get to the shooting gallery. There's 4 shooting galleries in the entire game. You probably want a save spot at the 4th one. You're not likely to miss any of them, so there really is no big concern around any of that. And so yeah, I think you can definitely catch up later to do the shooting galleries. And with that, it's been another hour. We maybe didn't make the most amount of progress since we spent extra time in the shooting gallery, but we did some stuff, enough stuff, really. And the story still is going forward, and the game is still going forward. We went through one of the iconic areas that everybody remembers, probably because it is a little too long and a little too difficult in that long hallway with all of the people infinitely spawning to attack you. But yeah, since this game is so stretched out like it is, it's just a really long, tall game, as I've used that example before. Um, there's a lot of sections, and each section is kind of designed to be memorable, which really led to, I guess, Resident Evil 4 being replayable and something that people remember and like. Um, but each individual section isn't also amazingly outstanding. If I had half of the game that Resident Evil 4 was, and then it had that iconic hallway section, that iconic hallway section would have half as much impact, because it is really standing out as an example of a lot of other sections, and each section is averaged out very nicely. You really don't run into a lot of just absolutely awful sections or amazingly good sections. So it makes this weird situation where maybe level designers and game designers in general should just shoot for average and make a long game with a lot of replayability, instead of shooting for awesome and cinematic and making a game really short and having very little replayability. It's almost the anti-Telltale game concept, where Telltale games decided to have basically no gameplay in there and sell visual novels effectively to the West by having just stories and dialogues and barely any gameplay mechanics otherwise, which led to most Telltale games after the initial success of The Walking Dead Season 1 being almost completely unplayable, because there's just not that much variety and there's not gameplay mechanics, so you really wouldn't want to go back and play it just to make a couple different visual novel dialogue choices. But Telltale was definitely trying to sell on each scene being very dramatic, and its visuals looking pretty good. Although by the time Telltale went out of business, its visuals didn't really look that good. I think I would like to see a lot more games try to be like Resident Evil 4 and be replayable and think about New Game Plus, compared to something like Destiny, which is what I'd like to compare it to out of all games, in that Destiny as a live service game and the general concept of live services games. I don't know why I am comparing it to Destiny, since I've never played Destiny. But the general idea of those games is that there will be an event, and you can only play that event for a short amount of time, and then there will just be new content to play. And maybe you can go back and replay old events at some point or immediately, but then none of your friends would be with you, so you wouldn't really want to do that. Plus, there's always this new content concept. If you compare a live service game concept to Resident Evil 4, it is night and day how well Capcom has been able to add basically no content to Resident Evil 4 for nearly 20 years now, by just reselling the same game over and over again, and people enjoying the game well enough that they would buy it again. Like, this Resident Evil 4 started out on the GameCube, and then people bought it on the Wii just because of the Wii controllers, and then people bought it on the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3. Then at some point it was also ported to PC, and then at some point it was updated a little bit with maybe some slight visual tweaks and control tweaks. So there is a slight remaster of Resident Evil 4, which let them then resell it on either the Xbox 360 or the Xbox One, and the PS3 or the PS4. And I imagine there might even have been next generation upgrades for Resident Evil 4, although I don't think there actually have been. So Xbox Series games or PlayStation 5 versions of the game, while I'm sure Resident Evil 4 is backward compatible on those systems, probably doesn't have what would be considered a true 1080p HD remaster or higher, no 2K, 4K. And now Capcom, after nearly 20 years of being able to sell the game on so many systems, I think it is somewhere around 12 different systems that it's available. It was available to be purchased at one time, or not all at one time, but overall. Now, after nearly 20 years, they finally are remaking the early Resident Evil games and making a new game by the same name, and then they'll sell that, and they'll probably sell that on a dozen systems over time. The only thing I could say Capcom potentially failed to do, and at some point somebody is going to see some success in porting old games to cell phones. They're going to just make the assumption that you can either plug in a Xbox controller or connect a Bluetooth PlayStation controller. I think Xbox controllers are Bluetooth nowadays too, depending on the ones you buy. But yeah, at some point, Android phones and Apple phones are going to be able to just assume that people have a controller and that they can play old games, relatively old games, on their cell phones, and then we'll probably see Resident Evil 4 come to mobile. At the current moment, if you have to stick to the touchscreen concept, it would be fairly rough to play Resident Evil 4 in mobile. But it wouldn't be impossible to take games like this and add a bunch of quick time events instead of aiming and shooting, and play a bunch of cutscenes of pre-played footage, much like, oh, what's the name? I want to say Space Ace. Was one of those Laserdisc games where it was really just a video and you had to hit a button at a certain time to succeed. That wouldn't feel like Resident Evil 4, certainly, if you're just having to tap on the screen every time a zombie is in front of you and there's a red dot that's just drifting and targeting. But you could get halfway there. You could increase some nostalgia by doing that. But yeah, mobile games, ports of real games are going to still struggle until you can have an assumption of controller support, which the support's there. It's just not assumed that people that have cell phones also have controllers and know how to hook them up. Anyways, I feel like I'm kind of rambling, so that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.